Welcome to Working the Puzzle, a show to help friends and neighbors affected by work loss by offering some advice from professionals in our community. I'm ICTV's Jennifer Vail-Storrs as your host today. Everyone's puzzle is different, and ICTV hopes these conversations can be part of your understanding of the process of change. Today I'm joined by Dr. Patty Carlin-Janssen. She's a family medicine doctor in Grand Rapids with Grand Itasca Clinic and Hospital. She received her medical degree from the University of Minnesota Medical School, where I believe she graduated with honors, and has been in practice for more than 23 years. Thank you for joining me today, Patty. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
So first off, let's talk about a little bit about your job. What does it entail, family medicine?
So I practice full spectrum family medicine. That means I take care of all age groups, from newborns up to senior citizens, up to people that are in long-term care facilities and nursing homes. I still provide inpatient hospital medicine, and I still do deliveries. Our work can be anything from routine wellness care to critical care to orthopedic and sports injuries.
So you work with everybody.
I work with everybody.
On the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
So what we wanted to talk today is a little bit about stress and the effect that it has on our body, our mind, and those kind of things. So let's talk about common problems with stress, how it affects your body.
Yeah, and there's several different ways that stress can affect people. Just like you talk about, everybody's puzzle is different. Everybody's reaction to stress is different. It can also be different depending upon the intensity of the stress, also the duration of the stress. Most of us, for low-grade stressors, can tolerate that on a day-to-day basis. But something that's either very intense or very prolonged tends to cause different symptoms in us. Sometimes we think about the mental symptoms, the emotional symptoms, but there are certainly also physical symptoms that occur. And in particular, people come to see me oftentimes when they have those physical symptoms that occur. Some of the things that we will sometimes see related to physical symptoms will be headaches, stomach aches. A lot of people will have sleep disturbances. People that have other pain-related conditions, arthritis, fibromyalgia, may find that those conditions worsen too.
So can we talk a little bit about, you kind of mentioned it, about mental and physical. How does that interplay, the two of them working together?
So there's certainly a very strong interplay between those two features of our body. There's feedback loops between both of them. The feedback loops that we look at involve our thinking, our nervous system, our endocrine system, which are different glands in our body that secrete hormones, and our immune system that affects how we react to different diseases, illnesses, infections, and inflammation. A great big long term for this is psychoneuroendocrine immunology. So again, it's the psychology part, our thinking and our thoughts, neuro, our nerves and neurotransmitters that send signals to other nerves and organs, our endocrine system, so the hormone secreting glands, and hormones are chemical messengers. And immunology, the system that affects our response to invaders, and those invaders can be infections or it can be some of our own internal inflammation, and the degree of that response. The longer that we are under stress, the more interplay there is with these different chemical messengers and neurotransmitters. An example of this is when we get scared and our body releases adrenaline. Adrenaline is a catecholamine. Most of us have heard of that fight or flight response. In a sudden situation, that's appropriate. That's what we want our body to do. When somebody's under prolonged stress, we don't want our body to keep sending out those chemical messengers. As those chemical messengers of catecholamines stay elevated, different things that we might notice include an increase in our heart rate, an increase in our respiratory rate, our blood pressure can go up, our blood sugar can go up, and it can also make changes in our digestive tract. We might feel nauseous, we might have diarrhea, we might have constipation. The way people will sometimes feel this in their system is they might have a sensation of racing heart or palpitations. They might feel tightness in their chest, may cause problems in their breathing. They may feel sweaty, or they may even notice a tremor, shaking symptoms. Certainly this can also affect how well we sleep. We talked about some of the other hormones that get changed. So for example, cortisol in our body. Cortisol is an appropriate response if we have an infection or if we have inflammation going on. However, again, if those levels stay increased for a prolonged period of time, different things we may see are actually poorer responses to infections, weight gain, muscle weakness, and again, increases in our blood sugar. So somebody who already has diabetes may notice during a period of stress they have a more difficult time treating their blood sugars.
So it makes sense, and if somebody were to go in to see their family physician and say, if you do, like you said, if you already have high blood pressure or diabetes, it's important to let your doctor know that I'm going through this really extreme time of stress, so that they know, maybe some of the reasons, and maybe can help you combat that.
Right. So there's looking at not only what our body's response to stress is, but what can be some of those other activities that we can be intentional about to not have as much of the negative physical impact. Certainly we look at stress and the effect on sleep. People who can't fall asleep, can't stay to sleep, have restless sleep, or even if they are sleeping, just feel tired during the day. That is one of the most common symptoms that people will come in with if they've been having either very intense stress or a prolonged episode of stress. So we talk about sleep hygiene. We all learn about hand hygiene as we're children, oral hygiene from our dentists. There is sleep hygiene. There are things that we can do to help improve our sleep. It's having a routine around sleep, a set bedtime, making that sleep environment appropriate for sleep, dark, quiet, limiting interactions that can make our sleep worse. Along with that is recognizing if you're taking care of all those things and you're still becoming more and more sleep deprived, that's going to affect how we feel during the day, how sharp our thinking is during the day, and physically how we heal ourselves during the day.
Absolutely, yeah. Sleep is a major factor in how we feel. Let's talk a little bit about mood. We can see changes physically, we can see changes in mood. What kind of changes do you see?
So some of the most common changes that we will see are anxious feelings, and people can have different ways that they show anxious feelings. There's some people who, when they're anxious, it almost has a paralyzing effect on them. They are afraid to do things. They are afraid to say things. Their mind is so busy with different thoughts. On the other hand, there's people who become extremely restless. Almost the opposite feeling. They're up, they're moving, they're jittery, they can't calm themselves back on down. Both situations oftentimes have these recurring, intruding thoughts of anxiety. Certainly there are depression or down mood symptoms. Other ways people will show that will be they're not as interested in things as they used to be. They don't look forward to things. And things beforehand that used to be pleasurable for them just aren't the same anymore. Those are probably some of the main moods that we see. There's some people who become irritable, angry, snappy, and certainly if they have the sleep deprivation part of it, right, that can make that much worse.
What are some of the ways that people can try and combat those things as well? I mean, are there ways that are that they could do at home, yep, to try and help?
Yep. Certainly if we think about these symptoms in the setting of job loss. With working, you had kind of a set routine, mm-hmm, during the day. You also had a certain amount of activity that you were doing during the day. Being active, and active doesn't necessarily mean you have to go and exercise, but it is decreasing that time that you are sitting, maybe watching TV, or having those more negative, anxious thoughts going through your mind. Good nutrition. Good nutrition is key during this time. Our bodies need energy. They need the right type of energy and fuel. The other thing to look at during this time is if we are feeling stressed, if we're feeling more anxious or depressed, we don't want to do things that are going to just fan those flames and make those things worse. One thing that we will certainly see when people are stressed or anxious is overeating. Okay, we all have our favorite comfort foods that we go to, and there's using a comfort food occasionally versus when food becomes kind of our comfort
all the time.
All the time. Okay, alcohol is another big factor. It may be that you have more leisure time. You don't have to get up for work that next day. So what used to be your Friday, Saturday, your weekend, your day off routine becomes your daily routine with drinking. That is something that I ask people to be extremely aware of, extremely cautious of, so that it doesn't have negative mental health, social interaction, physical health ramifications.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be very dangerous if it becomes a daily thing. Okay. What resources are available out there? I mean, should people, we always recommend that people have, their own doctor, a family physician that they can go to and in time of need, but what are some of the resources that are out there for people?
First of all, many people use their family as a resource. You don't want to become isolated in your home. So think about, it can be church, it could be hobbies that you've been involved with in the past. So it doesn't have to be anything that is extremely formal. Certainly, if somebody finds themselves feeling more sick, feeling more stressed, having some of the other symptoms that we talked about, coming in and seeing their primary care provider is always a very good initial place to start. In town here, there are several mental health facilities that have counselors, therapists to help people out. We also talked a little bit about activity, getting outside. People that belong to our YMCA or belong to other health clubs here in town. Those are also places where we can be more social. If we go back, and I talked a little bit about some of the negative effects of adrenaline, okay? If you can find that outlet, that is a good release of your adrenaline, okay? Mm-hmm. You're gonna feel better, emotionally better, physically better. You're gonna sleep better into that next night too.
Well, we've talked a lot about stress and the impacts, and I think you've covered just about everything that I have listed here. Is there other things that I may have missed that we should talk about?
They kind of talked about, the individual that lost their job, but really realizing that this has effects on community health overall. When there are layoffs, we can all feel sad. We all have our worries about it. So having those conversations, individuals in healthcare and public health realizing that these type of changes are not just isolated to an individual. They really are in part the community health. Having a community that supports mental health, that supports physical health. If you look at some of the trails, parks, biking programs that have been made available here in town are valuable resources.
And we didn't mention, because you talked about community, but it's also a big impact on not just the person who's lost the job, but their family,
Families.
Their kids. Yeah. What should we maybe recognize in our children if we, of families that have lost employment?
So some of the same symptoms that I talked about, maybe a little bit more related to grown-ups, we will see in children too. Children oftentimes don't know if they can talk about this with their friends, how to talk about it with their friends at school. They worry, is there going to be money for lunch, school clothes. It might change what sports or activities that they are involved in. So depending upon the age of your children, having them appropriately involved for their age and degree of maturity in those conversations. You can take advantage of some of this time to spend more time with your kids. Oftentimes we are so busy with our work. Most of us, maybe at the end of the work day, would have wished we would have had more time to spend with our kids. So showing our kids that, how important, how valuable they are to us.
Well, I think I've covered everything. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
And we appreciate you coming in and talking about healthy options for people when they suffer unemployment.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today for another program in our Working the Puzzle series. We'll see you again next time.